I still remember the way the light hit her face that morning, soft, golden, like she was some kind of angel. Emily stood by the kitchen counter, pouring coffee into my favorite mug, the one with the chipped handle. She smiled at me, but it didn't reach her eyes. That's when I felt it, a tiny fracture, a splinter in the life we'd built over 12 years. I'm James, by the way, James Carter, a regular guy from Ohio who thought he'd found forever with a woman named Emily Harper. We met at a 4th of July barbecue, her laughing at my terrible hot dog grilling skills, me fumbling over words to ask her out. Now here we were, married, settled, and yet something was off. It started small. She'd linger in the bathroom too long after a shower, the faint buzz of her phone cutting through the steam. Work, she'd say, brushing it off with a wave of her hand, her voice too bright, too quick. Work didn't text at midnight. Work didn't make her blush when I walked into the room. I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, her breathing steady beside me, too steady, like she was forcing it. Was I crazy? Paranoid? I loved her, God, I loved her, but doubt gnawed at me, sharp and relentless. That morning, as she handed me the coffee, I caught it, a whiff of cologne, faint but unfamiliar, clinging to her sweater. Not mine. My stomach twisted, a slow, sickening churn. You smell nice, I said, testing her, my voice tight. She froze, just for a second. Did I imagine it? Then laughed. Oh, it's just that new soap, she replied, turning away too fast. Soap? Since when did soap smell like cedar and spice? My hands shook as I sipped the coffee. It burned my tongue, but I barely noticed. I couldn't shake the feeling Emily, my Emily, was slipping away. I didn't want to believe it. Who does? You build a life with someone, kids' names picked out. We'd settled on Noah for a boy, Lily for a girl, a mortgage paid down, a dog named Max who slept at our feet. And then what? It's all a lie. But the signs piled up, late nights at the office, a new password on her phone, that cologne. I had to know. I had to be sure. So I made a decision, one that would unravel everything. I turned to someone I trusted, someone older, wiser, who'd seen the world and could help me see the truth. His name was Robert, my 55-year-old colleague, a grizzled guy with a dry laugh and a knack for reading people. If anyone could confirm my fears, it was him. The next day at work, I couldn't focus. Numbers blurred on my screen. Spreadsheets I'd managed for years turned into meaningless scribbles. All I could see was Emily's face, that too quick smile, the way her fingers brush her hair when she lied. I needed answers, but confronting her? No, not yet. My chest ached just thinking about it, accusing her, watching her eyes widen, hearing her deny it. What if I was wrong? What if I wasn't? I pushed my chair back, the squeak loud in the quiet office, and headed for Robert's desk. Robert was hunched over his coffee, his gray hair catching the fluorescent light. He looked up, squinting. You okay, James? He asked, his voice gravelly, steady. I hesitated. Could I trust him with this? Then nodded, a lie. I need a favor, I said, my words tumbling out too fast. He raised an eyebrow, waiting. I took a breath, the air stale, heavy. It's Emily. I think she's seeing someone. There was out loud, raw real. Saying it felt like a punch to the gut. My hands clenched at my sides. Robert leaned back, folding his arms. You sure? He asked, his tone neutral, but his eyes, sharp, piercing, studied me. I shook my head, helpless. No, that's why I need you. You're good with people, Robert. You notice things. Could you watch her? Just for a bit. My voice cracked. I hated how weak I sounded. He didn't answer right away, just sipped his coffee, the slurp loud in the silence. Then he nodded once, slow, deliberate. All right, kid. I'll check it out. Discreet-like. Relief flooded me, sharp, fleeting. Thank you, I whispered, my throat tight. Robert waved it off, gruff but kind. Don't thank me yet. Let's hope you're wrong. Hope? I clung to it, fragile as it was, but deep down I knew. That night, I watched Emily hum over the stove, stirring pasta sauce, our Thursday routine, and I wondered, was this the last normal moment? Robert would tail her, maybe catch her at the grocery store, the gym, somewhere innocent. I pictured him calling me, laughing. She's just buying broccoli, James. Relax. But the cologne lingered in my mind, a ghost I couldn't shake. The waiting was the worst part. Days dragged, slow, torturous, like time itself was mocking me. I'd sit at my desk, pretending to work, while my phone stayed silent. No calls from Robert, no updates, just a nothing. I'd check it obsessively, my thumb hovering over his name. Should I call? No, he'd reach out when he had something. Wouldn't he? At home, Emily moved through our routines like nothing was wrong, folding laundry, kissing my cheek goodnight. But her touch felt distant, her lips cool. Was I imagining it? My mind spun round and round, until I couldn't tell truth from fear. Friday came 3 days after I'd asked Robert for help. I found him in the break room, stirring sugar into his coffee, his face unreadable. Well, I blurted, my voice too loud, too desperate. He glanced up too calm, and shrugged. Nothing yet, he said, tapping the spoon against the mug, clink clink. Followed her to the mall yesterday. She bought some clothes, chatted with a cashier. That's it. His words were steady, but something flickered in his eyes, brief, gone. Relief hit me, shaky and thin, but doubt lingered. You're sure? I pressed, leaning closer. He nodded, firm. Relax, James. She's clean. I wanted to believe him, God, how I wanted to. But that cologne, those late nights, they clawed at me. Keep watching, I said, quieter now, my hands trembling. Robert sighed, a long, heavy sound. All right, but you're chasing shadows, kid. He clapped my shoulder, his grip strong, and walked off. I stood there alone, the hum of the vending machine filling the silence. Shadows. Maybe he was right. Maybe I was losing it. But that night, Emily's phone buzzed again, 11:47 p.m., and she rolled over, pretending to sleep. My stomach dropped. The shadows grew darker. Saturday, I tried to act normal. Mowed the lawn, played fetch with Max, but my eyes kept drifting to her. She laughed at something on her phone, her face lit up, alive in a way I hadn't seen in months. What's funny? I asked, forcing a smile. She blinked, startled, and tucked the phone away. Just a meme from Sarah, she said, too smooth. Sarah, her coworker. Sure. I nodded, my jaw tight, and turned back to the grass. Robert's words echoed. Nothing yet, but I couldn't shake the feeling he'd missed something. Or worse. Sunday morning, I woke to an empty bed. Emily's side was cold, the sheets barely wrinkled, like she'd barely slept there. I found her downstairs, sipping tea, her hair still damp from a shower. Early start. I asked, my voice casual, but my pulse raced. Thump, thump, thump. She smiled, soft, practiced, and nodded. Couldn't sleep. Thought I'd get a jump on the day. Her eyes darted to her phone, then back to me. That buzz again, faint, insistent. I forced a grin, my teeth gritted. Good idea, I said, turning away before she could see the storm in my chest. Work on Monday was a blur. Papers shuffled, emails ignored, until Robert stopped by my desk. He looked different, brighter, almost. His shirt was crisp and not the usual rumpled mess. Update, he said, leaning in, his voice low. Followed her to a coffee shop Saturday. She met a friend, some lady, red hair. They talked, laughed, left. Nothing weird. He smirked, a little too easy. Told you, James. Shadows. I nodded, slow, mechanical, but my mind snagged on his words. Red hair. Sarah had blonde hair, always had. Emily's meme excuse flashed back. My stomach twisted, sharp, sudden. You're sure it was just a friend? I asked, my tone tighter than I meant. Robert's smirk faded, just a flicker, then returned. Yeah, James. 2 women, coffee, gossip. Relax. He straightened, adjusting his collar, a new habit, and walked off. I stared after him, unease curling in my gut. He'd been so gruff before, so dismissive. Now he was, what? Cheerful. I rubbed my temples, the ache spreading. Maybe I was paranoid, maybe, but something felt off. Not just with Emily. With him. That night, Emily said she had a work thing late again and left me with Max and a reheated lasagna. I paced the house, the dog's eyes tracking me, worried. My phone sat silent, no word from Robert. I grabbed it, hesitated, fingers trembling, then texted him. Anything today? Minutes ticked by, agonizingly slow. Finally, a reply, nada. She's at work. Chill. Short, clipped, not like him. I sank onto the couch, Max nudging my hand, but my mind raced. Robert's crisp shirt, his smirk, that flicker in his eyes, and Emily always gone. The pieces didn't fit. Not yet, but they were there, taunting me. Tuesday hit me like a freight train. Exhaustion, dread, all of it piling up. I barely slept. Emily's absence the night before echoing in the empty house. She'd come home past midnight, her work thing dragging on, she said. Her hair smelled faintly of that cologne again. Cedar spice, a slap to my senses. I didn't ask. I couldn't. My voice would have broken, shattered, and I wasn't ready for her lies. Not yet. Instead, I watched her sleep, her face peaceful, beautiful, and wondered, who was she dreaming of? At work, Robert avoided me, head down, quick steps, like I was a ghost he didn't want to see. I cornered him at lunch, the cafeteria buzzing around us. You didn't check in last night, I said, my tone sharp, accusing. He shrugged, poking at his sandwich, ham, soggy bread. Nothing to report, he muttered, not meeting my eyes. She was at the office, like she said. His voice was flat, but his fingers tapped the table, restless, nervous, and that new shirt gleamed under the lights. You followed her? I pressed, leaning in. He nodded, too quick, and took a bite, chewing slow. Yeah, all good, James. I didn't believe him. Not anymore. That flicker in his eyes, his sudden polish, the way he dodged me. It gnawed at me, insistent, loud. I left the table, my tray untouched, and drove home early. Sick day, I told him. Max greeted me, tail wagging, but I barely noticed. I needed proof, something solid. Emily's laptop sat on the kitchen counter, lid closed, tempting. My hand shook as I opened it. Password, No Lily 12, our dream kids' names plus our anniversary. It worked. My heart sank. Emails loaded, work stuff, spam. Then I saw it, a message from R. Thompson sent yesterday. Meet me at 7. Usual spot. Robert Thompson. My Robert. The room spun fast, dizzying. I gripped the counter, my breath ragged. No, it couldn't be. A coincidence, maybe, but the timing, her work thing, his silence, it fit, jagged and ugly. I clicked the email, desperate for more, but it was blank, just that one line. My mind raced. Robert, 55, gruff, my friend, with Emily? No. I slammed the laptop shut, the sound echoing, sharp final. I had to know. I had to see it myself. I couldn't wait, couldn't sit still, couldn't breathe, knowing what I knew. That email burned in my skull. Meet me at 7. Usual spot. Robert and Emily, my wife, my friend, together? It was insane, impossible, but it fit, every jagged piece. I grabbed my keys, my hand shaking, clumsy, wild, and told Max to stay. His whine followed me out the door, but I barely heard it. The clock read 6:42 p.m. I had to move. I drove to her office first. Lights off, parking lot empty. No work thing tonight. My gut screamed, the usual spot. Where? I racked my brain. Coffee shop? No, too public. The park? Too open. Then it hit me. The old motel off Route 17, cheap, discreet. A place Robert once joked about when a coworker got caught cheating. My tires screeched as I turned, sharp, reckless, heading there, my pulse hammering, thud, in my ears. The motel loomed ahead, neon sign flickering, half dead. I parked across the street, lights off, and waited, hunched, breathless. At 7:03, her car rolled in, blue Honda, dented fender, Emily's. She stepped out, her hair catching the glow, and my heart cracked, split wide open. Then another car, Robert's beat-up Chevy, pulling up beside her. He climbed out, smoothed his shirt, that damn crisp shirt, and smiled at her. Smiled. My fists clenched, my nails dug into my palms, hot, stinging. They didn't see me. They walked close, too close, to room 12, her hand brushing his arm. A laugh, hers, light-free, cut through the night, slicing me raw. The door shut behind them, and I sat there, frozen, numb, raging. My friend, my wife, together. How long? Weeks? Months? The cologne, the texts, his lies. It crashed over me, a tidal wave of betrayal. I wanted to scream, pound the wheel, storm that room, but I didn't. Not yet. I needed more than pain. I needed justice. Brutal, cold justice. I don't know how long I sat there, minutes, hours, watching that motel door. Room 12 stayed shut, the blinds drawn, mocking me with its silence. My chest heaved, tight, heavy, Like I'd run a marathon, but my mind went still. Eerily still. The hurt was there, God, it burned. But something else took root, a quiet, icy fury. Emily and Robert, they played me, laughed at me, turned my life into a joke. I wouldn't let it stand. Not like this. I drove home slow, too slow, the night blurring past, headlights smearing into streaks. Max greeted me, tail thumping, but I just sank onto the couch, staring at nothing. Emily's laugh echoed in my head, light cruel, and Robert's smirk, that flicker in his eyes. How had I missed it? Trusted him? My hands balled into fists, knuckles white trembling, but I forced them open. Rage wouldn't help, not yet. I needed a plan, something sharp, something they'd never see coming. Wednesday dawned gray, heavy. Emily kissed me goodbye, her lips cold, lie, and I smiled back, mechanical, perfect. Have a good day, I said, my voice steady, too steady. She didn't notice, she never did anymore. At work, Robert clapped my shoulder, casual, smug, and I nodded, swallowing the bile. You look tired, he said, grinning. Tired? I wanted to smash that grin, shatter it, but I shrugged instead. Rough night, I replied, turning away. He didn't push, he thought he'd won. That afternoon, I started digging, quiet, careful. Robert's desk was a mess, papers, coffee stains, but I found a receipt. Motel room 12, dated 2 weeks back. Proof. My hand shook as I pocketed it. Evidence, the weapon. Emily's laptop stayed locked now, new password, but her car wasn't. I checked the glove box, a gas station stub, same date, same area. They weren't careful enough. Not yet. I sat back, the pieces clicking, click, 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 into place. Revenge wasn't a shout. It was a whisper, patient, precise. And I'd make it hurt. Thursday night, I didn't sleep, couldn't. The house felt hollow, Max's snores the only sound breaking the stillness. Emily came home late again, 1:14 a.m., muttering about a deadline. Her hair was mussed, her eyes bright, too bright. You're up, she said, startled, pausing in the doorway. I nodded, slow, deliberate, watching her squirm. Couldn't sleep. I replied, my voice low, calm. She smiled, weak, forced, and slipped upstairs. I waited till her footsteps faded, then pulled out the receipt, the gas stub. My proof. My fuel. Friday, I called in sick, voice hoarse, convincing, and spent the day planning. Robert liked routine. Coffee at 10, lunch at noon, motel trysts after work. Emily followed his lead. Predictable, sloppy. I'd use that. I drove to the motel, scoped it, dingy, isolated, perfect. The clerk barely glanced up, bored, chewing gum. When I asked about cameras. Broken, he grunted. Good. No witnesses. My hand steadied finally. As the idea solidified, they'd meet again, room 12, and I'd be ready. I needed tools, nothing flashy, just effective. Hardware store, rope, duct tape, a wrench, heavy, cold in my grip. The cashier chatted, too chipper, about the weather. I nodded, blank, my mind elsewhere. Back home, I stashed it all in the garage, hidden, waiting. Emily texted, late again. Sorry. I typed back, no problem. Love you. A lie bitter, sharp, but it kept her blind. Robert got a text too, from a burner phone I'd bought. Meet at 7. Usual spot. He'd think it was her. He'd come. That evening, I parked near the motel. Lights off, engine quiet, watching. At 6:58, Robert arrived, Chevy rattling, smug as ever. He adjusted his collar, strode to room 12, knocked. I slipped out, silent, shadow quick, wrench in hand. He turned, too late, his eyes widening. James, he gasped, voice cracking. I didn't answer. The wrench swung, hard, precise, and he crumpled, a grunt his only sound. Step 1 done. Emily was next. Robert lay slumped by room 12, still silent, his chest rising slow, shallow. I dragged him inside, grunting, sweating, the rope tied around his wrists, duct tape sealing his mouth. No screams, no please. Not yet. Blood trickled from his temple, dark, slick, where the wrench had kissed him good night. I didn't feel guilt, didn't feel anything, just a hollow hum where my heart used to be. Emily's car would roll in soon. I checked my watch, 7:12 p.m. She'd come clueless late, like always. The room stank, mothballs, regret, but I paced it steady, deadly calm. The wrench sat heavy in my hand. The plan burned clear in my mind. Headlights flash, her Honda pulling up. My pulse spiked, sharp, electric, but I crouched by the door, waiting. She knocked, soft, tentative. Robert? No answer. She pushed in, hair loose, eyes darting, and froze. James. Her voice broke, high, panicked, as she saw him bound, bleeding. The door clicked shut behind her. She didn't notice. What's happening? She stammered, stepping back, wild, trapped. I stood, slow, deliberate, wrench dangling. You tell me, I said, my tone eyes cutting low. Her face crumpled, tears, lies. I held up the receipt, the gas stub. How long, Emily? She shook her head, frantic, desperate. James, no, it's not. How long? I roared, the sound tearing from me raw, primal. She flinched hard, then whispered, 3 months. 3 months. My world shredded for 90 days. I stepped closer, she shrank back. Rope in my free hand. You and him, I hissed, nodding at Robert, groaning now, stirring. My wife, my friend. Tears streamed down her face. Messy, real, but I didn't care. I looped the rope tight fast. Around her wrists, she gasped, begged, Please, James, I'm sorry. Sorry? Too late. I taped her mouth, her sobs muffled, and shoved her beside him. They sat there bound, broken, my betrayers staring up at me. I didn't speak, didn't need to. The wrench rose slow, final, and their eyes widened, terror matching mine once. The wrench hung there midair, gleaming. Robert's muffled groan and Emily's wide, wet eyes locked on it. My arm trembled, fury, grief surging, but I stopped. Stopped. Not because they deserved mercy, God, no, but because ending them, it wouldn't end us. The hole in me, gaping raw, wouldn't close with blood. I dropped the wrench, clanging loud, onto the motel floor and stepped back, breathing hard, ragged, uneven. They stared, confused, terrified, as I loomed, silent. You don't get to die, I said, my voice low, gravelly cold. You live with this. I ripped the tape off Emily's mouth, she yelped, then Robert's. James, please, she sobbed, but I cut her off sharp, final. Shut up. Robert coughed, weak, hoarse. Kid, I'm sorry. Don't. I snapped, my glare slicing through him. Sorry. Their words were worthless late. I untied them, rough, quick, leaving the rope coiled like snakes at their feet. You're nothing to me now. I walked out, door banging shut, the night air hitting me, cool, bitter. Behind me, their voices rose, shouting, pleading, but I didn't turn back. My car roared to life. I drove fast, aimless, Max's face flashing in my mind. Home. I'd pack clothes, dog, memories, and leave. Emily could have the house, the lies. Robert could have her. They'd rot together, guilt their cage, not my problem anymore. The road blurred, tears, finally, but I swiped them away, angry free. Days later, I heard small-town whispers. Emily filed for divorce. Robert quit, vanished. I didn't care. Max and I settled miles away. New job, new walls, and I rebuilt slow piece by jagged piece. The pain stayed, dull, constant, but I lived. They didn't break me, not fully. That was my revenge, surviving, while they drowned in what they'd done. Unexpected? Maybe. Enough? Yes.